Okay, hello to everybody on YouTube. Again, I believe the way my life goes, I'll be lucky if one person watches this, but this is strictly for Chris Cuomo on POTUS. I can't watch your nighttime program because I just think that every news outlet, even including you, now you're different. You bring on people that are trying to make a difference within the subject instead of talking heads. And those talking heads are literally destroying this country, in my opinion. All of it, all the for-profit news channels out there, they don't give a shit about this country. They don't give a shit about the middle of the country. They don't give a shit. As long as they can get ratings by hate, aggression, division, spin, and most of the time it's spin against, if you're on Fox and you're watching it, you just want to go to war. And if you're on MSNBC and somebody's on Fox, you just want to go to war. And I really believe what I'm about ready to say. So if Chris Cuomo ever is able to watch this on YouTube, I'm speaking strictly to you. I call into your show quite often. I'm only lucky to get in there maybe 4 or 5 times. First off, I want to tell you how much I respect you. I think you're probably, in my opinion, Dan Abrams is pretty spot on, but he's a different kind of commentator. He takes issues on the law. You take issues on compassion, division, problems in America, COVID, Trumpism, everything has come up from Trump's tariffs to January 6th to letting a lot of people on your show talk equally. I tend to get shut down a lot because I think I frustrate you a little bit. I'm okay with that because my respect for you is, again, I have such an enormous amount of respect and awe for what I'm going to say next is what you're not going to like. But I went to Washington State to see my sister. Her family are somewhat big Trumpers. I think he's probably the darkest thing that's ever happened to this country. But when I sat down and I spoke with them about, because we didn't talk for, 2 or 3 years. It got to the point where we just had to stop speaking to one another. My sister's health has been failing. I kind of abandoned my nephew years ago for chaos reasons and my own personal concerns. And I drove back there and surprised them all, and boy, was it an amazing weekend. It actually reconnected what I wish I probably would have had more conversations with, but it's going to go directly to my point. And after talking with her husband, we thought we had so much difference between us, but we really are pretty much almost dead on the same page. So, my perspective, we are in the West, and we are suffering from extreme drought. We have got extreme fires on the West Coast that is clouding pretty much the whole western part of the country, and a cloud of smoke that we had some last year, but it's got progressively worse. We've had almost 2 solid weeks of gray skies where I can't even see the Rocky Mountains on my east side and the west side mountains, and they're completely gone, taken out by smoke. But even more important in the state of Utah and climate change, that we have a lake, Echo. I used to take my kids there pretty much their whole lives to go jet skiing and boating. That lake is pretty much gone, and the people that live maybe 3/4 of a mile, the city of Echo, no longer have tap water. If you look at Lake Mead, they're now cutting back water rations to next year. If you listen to science, we are headed towards a continuation of a warming planet and a warming west, which means we're not going to be replenished here, where it's just going to get continuously worse and more arid and more problems. And I'm frustrated by my local governor because he wants to go to prayers instead of starting to think rationally about how we get around this. But directly to you, Chris Cuomo, I believe with all my heart, capitalism and elite wealth in this country. That includes you. Now, you are probably one of the ones who have a great deal of money, who of course are going to send your kids to the finest schools. And I don't have any animosity for anybody like that. What I have a great deal of animosity for is we have now entered a place where the only thing that matters in this country is money. You are part of the elite. The system is corrupt. It is broken. Both forms of government, Democrat and Republican, are so marred and corrupt in money and finance. Just look at what we're doing with Afghanistan. We're jumping out, which I think we should have stayed and done a much better job of taking those Afghans out that deserve to be in the United States. I probably will never vote. I'm not sure what to do about my vote anymore, because I think there's a slow boil, a simmering that's starting to become really problematic. But it's never going to change. You always talk about on your show, don't hate the players, hate the game. The game cannot be overcome. You always say, yeah, just get out there and elect other representatives for your interest. But the truth is, that's not possible in this country anymore. It's become so, again, corrupt. All levels. Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, I think AOC, maybe Bernie Sanders. Some of those entry-level people who really still have compassion in their heart and aren't out fundraising more so than trying to do the work of people like me and my state and throughout the country. And the system is propped up by people like you. No matter what takes place and what is coming, which is climate change, which is going to affect the poor, which is already affecting the poor all over the globe, which we don't give a shit about. I'm not going to compare my life to your life. I'm not. I do a lot. I once had a company that did $2.7 million a year. And for all sorts of reasons, I cut back. And the more I talk with youth and the young people of the world and my kids who are 28 and 25, they're starting to become hopeless. Only if you have money and you want those representatives in there, you want those people in there, because the wealthy can always afford the $8 avocado. They can always afford the $5 tomato or the $7 loaf of bread, or even more so, how about the brisket for $55 instead of $22? Or the fish that the poor will no longer be able to really be able to afford. And so it's you, it's the elite, it's the Hollywood elite, it's the elite, it's the media, it's everybody that's worth $2 or $3 million and on up. Because when all this thing becomes so problematic, which it already here is in the West, but we don't talk about it, because climate change is something that would take a drastic direction change, and all of a sudden capitalism would be the enemy of what is now becoming such a problem that only people like you will be able to move up and get to a cooler climate, or build a big massive house which adds to the footprint and cool it in 2 different counties or 2 different states or 2 different parts of the world, while the rest of the middle class and the lower class and the poor will continue to die without any kind of ventilation or any kind of evaporator cooler or air conditioning, or won't be able to afford food because crop failures are going to become more regular. And flooding in the state of Utah is out of control over the last 2 or 3 weeks, but yet we have 100 degrees. We have no water in our reservoirs. There's no good outlook, because if you're listening to science, we're fucked as far as how this whole thing's going to come undone and how we're going to come after it. And I take to task that you want us to like people or stop hating people of success. There has to become a time and place in history, and what I believe the greatest country on planet Earth, we stop looking at becoming the wealthiest person in America. Look at Jeff Bezos and the footprint of what he's doing and all the people he's taken out of work. And we glorify him as he shoots up into a rocket. And then you say, don't hate the guy. What's it going to take for somebody like Chris Cuomo to see that rising seas, water in the West is going to become so problematic? We're not going to, I mean, we got people here that don't have tap water. We got people on the Oregon and California borderline that don't have water in their taps. It's just going to get worse. And what drives that is emissions. Nobody wants to talk about it, but the meat we eat, I mean, that's almost like talking about Christ and God being fake, and it's a cult, because meat is right there with it, baby. It is one of the major drivers on planet Earth. Why we cut down major forests to graze the cattle, the amount of cattle, the amount of methane that comes out, the water consumption of those animals. But, I listen to you all the time on your radio station, and you make cracks at, eating meat and so on and so forth, which as a society, we're never going to get past that. We'd rather literally eat our last hamburger while our kids go hungry or go thirsty, or know that what we're doing has no 2045 with water, with decency, except for people like you who love to prop the system up, who loves to keep those people in power. Now, you'll never probably listen to this, but you'll fire back and say you're different. You are different. The only thing you're not different is you're not talking about it like you should, because capitalism is the problem in America. Capitalism is the problem on the planet. This greed and wealth, we will do anything. We will dirty the water. We will pollute the air. We will ruin crops. We will devastate an ocean with plastic. If there's money and profit and Wall Street and 35,000 on the Dow, when the Dow is literally driven by everybody putting their 401ks and hoping for the best in big petroleum, in plastics, in pharmaceutical, everything that's literally bursting at the seams on this planet. Now, I'm not a Pollyannic person. I'm not looking at, oh my gosh, it's all over with, but I'm very realistic. And if we don't change our behavior and we don't start talking from your podium that it is capitalism that's killing everything, we can't continue like this. We are in the West right now in a situation that nobody wants to talk about. And in the middle of the country, they're getting flooded out. And how many crops are being ruined? What is another 10 years of this? And here's the biggest proof why rich say nothing and the government's completely corrupt all the way up. Joe Biden, corrupt. What, 88 billion is in discretionary funds in the military, like a slush fund to be like in Afghanistan, and can be used any way it wishes to be used. So anybody that watches this, understand that 1,000 millions goes into a billion. So 88 billion is just a slush fund where they can do discretionary funding for black water projects, for whatever it is. That's not including on top of their, $700 billion budget? And we go to get an infrastructure bill, and we're literally running out of water in the West. We're literally running out of water in the West, and the West Coast is burning to the ground. People's lives are being lost, and homes are being lost. And this is just the beginning of what has already been taking places for the last decade or two. But we won't look at all the serious reasons why, because we are not willing to make a change, because capitalism doesn't give a shit about the poor. Capitalism doesn't give a shit about the middle class, the wealthy, the elite. You, when it comes right down to it, you don't care. Now, your show is probably the most profound, and it may sound contradictory here, but you've got a heart of gold. But you just don't want to admit that the drive for money, where you can get in the back of a car and be chauffeured back to your house, you're so disconnected, even though you're connected on the radio, but you're so disconnected from what's killing us all. And I just want to say that I love you. I think you're amazing on the radio. I think your platform is misguided. The country can't come together because all media keeps us apart. The political divide keeps us apart. And then going back to Washington State, my sister's husband, big Trumper. You know what we agree upon? The rich of the world are raping it and killing everything around us, reaping the profits while they give very little to nothing to those below. Housing's out of control, cost of food's out of control. A planet is literally collapsing in itself, eco-wise. We're taking down the rainforests, a great deal for people's meat. And yes, I'm vegan, but I'm vegan because I got educated, because I believe in the science of what is taking place, not some bullshit of what somebody wants to say about it. So I got to say, I'm out here with my dogs. Got my big, beautiful Great Dane. There's Gracie. She likes to take down force. Look at that beautiful dog. And my little Winston, who will walk anywhere. Looks like a teddy bear. And my best friend Jet, who is by far the best looking dog I've ever seen. And Chris Cuomo, I love you, man, but you're off base. And we're worrying about things that have bigger worries. Now, Afghanistan, I called the DNC because I was a Republican because I ran my company. It was all about get out of my business and leave me alone, let me make money. And my daughter got of age and said, Dad, look what's going on. Look what's going on in my future. And I don't have the money to put her in Yale or Harvard, and so she can go to some elite place. And that's what's wrong with the elite class. You just don't get it. No matter what your kids do, they got it. You give enough money to pass it on, they can go up and get themselves out of climate change. They can get themselves into a cooler location or warmer location. You are with the elites fucking us all. That's the anger. That's why America can't make it past the next 10 years. Because the poor have had enough. Those Trumpers, they've had enough of the country and they've had enough of the government. All of them. McConnell, Jordan, Schumer, all of them. They're just all so corrupt. They're corrupt to the bone. You look at the money and what they spend. They won't even put $1 trillion in infrastructure. We won't even talk about climate change, about what it takes to get more charging stations across the country. We are literally losing our kids' futures right in front of our face, and we're doing nothing and saying very little to nothing. And all the talking heads want to do is say, hate them, and Trump sucks, and Biden sucks, and you suck because you think this way, and you suck because you think this way. And nobody's talking about the core table issues that's killing us all. You talk to the youth of the world that aren't wealthy, because wealthy kids, fucking give me a fucking break. They don't care. They get the finest of everything, and they get it's a joke compared to the everyday American. It's a joke. And why do you think it's boiling? We've all had enough. We've had enough. The people that support Trump, they just had enough. They've had enough of the overspending and all the PPP that made it down to what? You know how many people I know that got kicked out of their apartments and they tried to get the PP money to help them with their money, with their apartments, and they never got it? Where's all those billions of dollars? It's stuck in the wealth, and it's stuck in the banks, and it's stuck in the fucked up behavior of this country. It has to burn to the ground somehow, or we have to get our shit together because our kids have got nothing coming. So Chris Cuomo, I love you. You'll probably never see this. I'm frustrated by your lack of not putting together capitalism, wealth, devastation of the planet, people not caring, like there's an endless supply of wood, an endless supply of plastic, an endless supply of building materials, and endless. Oh, everything burns down in California. Shit, we'll rebuild it. Climate change is going to keep taking it from us and keep taking us from us. When are we going to learn? You have a great spirit, a beautiful mind, and a great show. I wish you'd just start talking more about the realities of what's taking place and calling capitalism out like it needs to be, because that's the truth, and you're about truth, so get after it. All right, peace.